6 months into the relationship, she couldn't recognize herself. She used to be confident, decisive, happy. Now, she apologized for everything. She double-checked every text before sending it. She rehearsed conversations in her head before having them. She had stopped seeing her friends, not because he told her to, because it was easier. She didn't think she was in a bad relationship. She thought she was in a hard one. There's a difference, and that difference costs people years of their lives. Here's the thing about narcissistic relationships. They don't feel abusive. They feel like you're failing, like you're not good enough, not patient enough, not loving enough. That feeling is not a coincidence. It was built. Today, I'm going to show you the exact signs, not the obvious ones you already know, the ones that are invisible until you understand the pattern. Because by the time most people recognize it, they've already lost something they can't get back. Let's start with why this is so difficult. Most people think a narcissist looks like this: arrogant, loud, openly selfish, someone you'd spot in 5 minutes. That's one type. Researchers call it overt narcissism. It's the least common and the least dangerous. The type that destroys relationships silently is called covert narcissism, also known as vulnerable narcissism. Dr. Craig Malkin, Harvard psychologist, author of Rethinking Narcissism, spent 15 years studying this specific type. His finding: covert narcissists are often the most charming people in the room. They present as humble, sensitive, even selfless. The manipulation is invisible because it doesn't look like manipulation. And that invisibility is not accidental. Narcissistic personality disorder exists on a spectrum. At the clinical end, a documented psychiatric condition. But the behaviors, the patterns, exist in millions of people who will never receive a diagnosis, who will never sit in a therapist's office, who will sit across from you at dinner. The signs I'm about to show you are not about diagnosing your partner. They are about recognizing a pattern that once you see it, you cannot unsee. Sign 1. It felt perfect too fast. Think back to the beginning. Did it feel like you had known this person your entire life? Did they seem to understand you in a way no one ever had? Did the relationship escalate unusually quickly? Declarations of love, future plans, intensity. Within weeks? That feeling has a name: love bombing. And it is not a sign of deep connection. It is a tactic. Dr. Dale Archer, clinical psychiatrist, describes love bombing as overwhelming a person with attention and affection to gain control before they can develop independent judgment. The goal is to make you emotionally dependent before you know enough about the person to decide clearly. And it works, so because it feels extraordinary, because for a moment it is the best feeling you have ever had. That's the point. Sign 2. Conversations always come back to them. This one is subtle. You start talking about something difficult in your life. Within minutes, sometimes seconds, the conversation has shifted. Now you're talking about their difficult thing, or reassuring them, or listening to a story about how they handled something similar. It happens so naturally you don't notice, until you realize you never finish a thought, you never feel truly heard, and somehow every conversation ends with you taking care of them. Sign 3. You started apologizing for things that aren't your fault. This is the clearest early signal. Think about how many times in this relationship you have said, "sorry." Now ask, how many times have they? Narcissists have a near pathological inability to accept responsibility. When something goes wrong, the explanation always traces back to someone else. Usually you. Not through direct accusation. Through a slow, consistent reframing of events until your version of reality no longer feels reliable. Psychologists call this gaslighting, and in narcissistic relationships, it is not a dramatic moment. It is a slow drip, every day, until you stop trusting your own memory. Sign 4. Public perfection, private cruelty. To everyone else, your partner is wonderful, thoughtful, generous, well-liked, and in public, with you, they are too. But at home, a comment that cuts just deep enough. A look that makes you feel small. A silence that punishes without explanation. And because the public version is so good, you start to wonder if the private version is your fault. If you're making it up. If you're too sensitive. That gap between who they are to the world and who they are to you alone is one of the most consistent markers in clinical narcissism research. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the world's leading experts on narcissism, calls it the two-faced dynamic. The outside face is curated. The inside face is the real one, and you are the only one who sees it, which means you're the only one who won't be believed. Sign 5. You've become smaller. This is the one that matters most. Think about who you were before this relationship. Your hobbies, your friendships, your confidence, the things you wanted, the opinions you held without apologizing. Now ask, how many of those still exist? Narcissistic relationships don't take things from you violently. They erode them. A comment about your friends. Not a fight, just a comment. A reaction to your opinion that makes you hesitate next time. A subtle dismissal of your interests until you stop mentioning them. Over months, over years, the person you were gets replaced by someone whose entire focus is managing the relationship, predicting moods, avoiding triggers, performing the version of yourself they want to see. By the time most people notice, they don't know who they are anymore. Here is the part that no one talks about. Narcissistic relationships are not consistently bad. If they were, you would leave. They follow a documented cycle. Researchers call it idealize-devalue-discard. The idealize phase, love bombing, warmth, connection, keeps coming back. Not as often as at the beginning, but just often enough. And every time it returns, your brain responds the same way it did on day one. Dopamine, oxytocin, relief. This is the person I fell in love with. I knew they were still in there. That cycle, punishment followed by reward, withdrawal followed by warmth, creates the same neurochemical pattern as addiction. We covered this in a previous video. But in narcissistic relationships, there is a second layer that keeps people trapped. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. The longer you've been in the relationship, the more evidence your brain searches for that it was worth it, that it will get better, that you haven't wasted years for nothing. The investment itself becomes a reason to stay. And the narcissist, consciously or not, knows this, which is why the good moments are timed. Not random, delivered at exactly the moment you are closest to leaving. Here is what the research actually shows. Most people in narcissistic relationships are not weak people who couldn't leave. They are strong people whose strength was weaponized. The most targeted partners in documented cases are highly empathetic, deeply loyal, with a strong sense of personal responsibility. In other words, good people. Dr. Joseph Burgo, psychoanalyst, author of The Narcissist You Know, puts it clearly. Narcissists do not look for easy targets. They look for people with qualities they lack. Empathy, warmth, genuine care. They are attracted to it, and then they consume it. The fact that you stayed is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence that you loved someone the way they told you they needed to be loved. The problem was never your love. It was what they did with it. So, what do you do with this? First, recognition is not enough. Knowing the name of what happened to you does not automatically end it. The bond is neurochemical. The patterns are deep. Understanding them is the beginning, not the solution. Second, the recovery is not about them. Most people leaving narcissistic relationships spend enormous energy trying to understand their partner. Why they are this way, what happened to them. If they can change, that energy belongs to you, not to them. The question that accelerates recovery is not, why did they do this? It is, who was I before this started? And what do I need to become that person again? Third, trust the pattern, not the moments. Every narcissistic relationship has good moments, sometimes great ones. The question is never, were there good times? The question is, what is the consistent pattern? If the consistent pattern is, you feel smaller, less certain, more apologetic, more isolated, no number of good moments changes what the pattern is. The warning signs are not dramatic. They are quiet. They live in the daily texture of how you feel. Not once, consistently. If you watched this and recognized yourself, not your partner, yourself, that recognition is not an accusation. It is the first clear thing you've seen in a long time. Trust it.